Thanks for watching Focus on Africa. I'm Wahiga Mwaura. We'll see you again tomorrow. Goodbye.
Live from Washington, this is BBC News. I'm Sumi Somaskanda. A prayer service at Washington's National Cathedral kicks off the first full day of Donald Trump's second term as president. And it follows a raft of executive orders, from January 6 pardons to withdrawing from the WHO and Paris Climate Accords. And the new U.S. Secretary of State, Florida Senator Marco Rubio, welcomes a new era in U.S. foreign policy.
Everything we do must be justified by the answer to one of three questions. Does it make us stronger? Does it make us safer? And does it make us more prosperous? If it doesn't do one of those three things, we will not do it.
And I'm Geeta Guru-Murthy here in London. The other main headlines. A deadly fire engulfs a 12-storey hotel in a Turkish ski resort, killing 66 people and injuring over 50. The ceasefire between Israel and Hamas holds into a third day, with a further exchange of hostages and prisoners expected this weekend. And inauguration outfits, we decode what the First Lady and others may or may not be saying.
A very warm welcome to the world today, an hour of international news from the BBC. It is lunchtime here in Washington, D.C., and the first full day of Donald Trump's second term in the White House is now well underway. It started, as is tradition, with the national prayer service at Washington National Cathedral. You see there the Trumps alongside the Vances, Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife Usha Vance there in the front row. A moment of reflection, perhaps, ahead of the whirlwind to come. And that whirlwind started on Monday evening with what could be described as a deluge of executive orders. All right. And as we said, we are following Donald Trump's first full day in office, his second term, of course. We were just a moment ago looking at some pictures of Marco Rubio, his new Secretary of State, who was sworn in this morning, delivering some remarks to the State Department. Marco Rubio, there you see those images still as people are milling around. He said that America's place has to be at the center of the world, and he wants the State Department to play a central role on that. Of course, Marco Rubio, the first of Donald Trump's cabinet picks to be approved unanimously by his fellow colleagues, former colleagues now in the Senate. So we're going to continue to watch these pictures and Donald Trump's actions today here in Washington, D.C. Thanks so much for watching BBC. We're back in a few moments.
This is BBC News. I'm Geeta Guru-Murthy. Here are the headlines. A prayer service at Washington's National Cathedral kicks off the first full day of Donald Trump's second term as president. It follows a raft of executive orders, from January the 6th pardons to withdrawing from the World Health Organization and Paris Climate Accords. A deadly fire engulfs a 12-storey hotel in a Turkish ski resort, killing 66 people and injuring over 50. Now, one of the key issues that was a concern for US voters was, of course, the cost of living and the price of everyday goods, with inflation a real issue. Well, what is Donald Trump saying about that so far? One of his favourite words, he says, is tariffs, but that can hurt US consumers if other countries retaliate against higher costs imposed from them. Thank you. Around the world and across the UK, this is The World Today on BBC News. Now, one of the most pressing issues facing the new US president is the situation in the Middle East. Today, the commander-in-chief of the Israeli army has said that he will resign over the security questions over October the 7th. And Israel has also today launched an operation in the occupied West Bank. Palestinian officials say that 8 people have been killed in Jenin. Well, as the Gaza ceasefire does continue to hold for a third day, the UN says that aid convoys going into the territory have been free of looters. Publicity round, very quickly, 10 seconds.
Absolutely nailed it. She looked absolutely resplendent,
Okay.
a real showstopper, really, really classically put together with the Oscar de la Renta pink
Thank
scarf.
you. Scott Wims, that we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time, and we are back.
So much.
Thank you. We are back in a few minutes with more. I'm Geeta Guru-Murthy.
Live from Washington, this is BBC News. I'm Sumi Somaskanda. A prayer service at Washington's National Cathedral kicks off the first full day of Donald Trump's second term as president. It follows a raft of executive orders, from January 6 pardons to withdrawing from the WHO and Paris climate accords. And the new U.S. Secretary of State, Florida Senator Marco Rubio, welcomes a new era for U.S. foreign policy.
We're going to have the best ideas of any agency, and because we're going to execute it better and faster and more effectively than any other agency in our government.
And I'm Geeta Guru-Murthy here in London. The other main headlines: a deadly fire engulfs a 12-storey hotel in a Turkish ski resort, killing at least 66 people and injuring over 50. The ceasefire between Israel and Hamas holds into a third day, with a further exchange of hostages and prisoners expected this weekend. And in inauguration outfits, we decode what Ivanka Trump and others may or may not be saying.
Welcome to The World Today, an hour of international news from BBC News. Now, it is just past lunchtime here in Washington. The first full day of Donald Trump's second term in the White House is now well underway. It started, as is the tradition, with the National Prayer Service at Washington National Cathedral. Here you see Donald Trump and the First Lady, Melania Trump, standing next to his Vice President, J.D. Vance, and his wife, the Second Lady, Usha Vance. It was a moment of reflection, perhaps, ahead of the whirlwind to come. And that whirlwind started on Monday evening with what could be described as a deluge of executive orders. Okay, Congresswoman, great to see you again. Thanks for making time for us today.
Thank you.
Around the world and across the UK, this is The World Today on BBC News.
Some breaking news this hour. The Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has declared a day of national mourning following a fire at a hotel in a ski resort, which has killed at least 76 people. He said those responsible would be held to account. 4 people have been detained, including the hotel's owner. Well, the fire ripped through the 12-storey hotel in the early hours of the morning, as our correspondent Nikki Schiller reports. Well, do stay with us here on BBC News, and you can keep up to date on our live pages. Donald Trump is due to be announcing something on infrastructure later, an investment. We will keep you right across that as soon as that happens, of course. And he's also expected to meet some Republicans, top Republicans in Congress too, before that announcement. I'll be speaking to Kim Darroch in the next few minutes, former British ambassador to the UK, to ask him for his thoughts on what we saw yesterday, those spectacular events, and all the change that Donald Trump is already pledging to bring to the US, and of course with global implications. Do stay with us here on BBC News. This is BBC News. I'm Geeta Guru-Murthy with the headlines. A prayer service at Washington's National Cathedral kicks off the first full day of Donald Trump's second term as president. It follows a raft of executive orders from January the 6th pardons to withdrawing from the WHO and Paris climate accords. A deadly fire engulfs a 12-storey hotel in a Turkish ski resort, killing 76 people and injuring over 50. So we've been telling you, of course, about some of Donald Trump's executive orders issued yesterday. Here are BBC correspondents on some of the president's first big policy decisions. Around the world and across the UK, this is The World Today on BBC News. Now, of course, one of the key challenges for Donald Trump as he starts his term at the White House is the whole situation in the Middle East. And it's just being reported now that the UN says that 897 aid trucks have entered Gaza today. And of course, we are expecting another hostage and prisoner exchange at the weekend. Well, earlier I spoke to our correspondent in Jerusalem, Jonah Fisher, and asked him about a couple more developments today. One, the Israeli military operation in the West Bank, the occupied West Bank, and also the announcement of the resignation of the commander-in-chief of the Israeli army. Well, there's more on the inauguration and the announcements that have come. This is the live page. It's talking about an announcement that we're expecting possibly on infrastructure. We will bring you that live when it happens, of course, from the United States. Now, a rare colony of red squirrels has been discovered on a tree plantation in the north of England. Despite being... Well, just let me remind you of a couple of breaking news items we've had in the last half an hour or so. The numbers of people killed in a fire in a Turkish ski resort has increased now to 76, according to the authorities there. And this happened at Bolu at a hotel called the Grand Cartel Hotel at 3:27 local time during a very busy holiday period when over 200 people were staying there, and a day of mourning has been announced by President Erdogan in Turkey. Also, just to tell you that on some of Donald Trump's announcements, you will remember that he has said that the US is going to pull out of the World Health Organization, something that he had talked about for some time. And an official there has told the BBC that this is going to be a severe blow and a deep wound, saying his greatest fear is that we won't have a capable, agile international health agency when health emergencies strike, like polio in Gaza or Mpox in the DRC or bird flu in the United States. We need a strong World Health Organization to step up, and he says that he fears this will allow China to get more influence. More coming up with Christian in the US, and from me for now, bye-bye. Here's Helen Willits with the weather.
Good evening. Fog may well be an issue again through the night and